When we're talking about fight, flight, or freeze, I think freeze is the hardest to move out of because, unlike fight or flight, which sends adrenaline to your body and you can potentially channel that adrenaline into an activity that moves you elsewhere, freeze is a shutdown, it's a numbing out. And I think with the pandemic, a lot of us are feeling this kind of want to escape and numb out. I know for me that I numb out with binge watching TV shows, scrolling through my phone, kind of without really taking in information. I find that I suddenly am craving a lot of chocolate, or I really want to sleep and I just want to nap and I don't want to get out of bed. So these are all signs that I'm numbing and my body just wants to be disconnected. I think the big difference between numbing and comforting yourself and resting is that when you are resting and comforting yourself, I find that I am connected with how I feel. So I may be resting by watching a movie that I love or that brings me joy, but I understand that I I need that comfort, and I'm aware that I'm feeling scared or anxious or upset, and I'm doing an activity to help me move through that, as opposed to when I numb out and when I'm really trying to not feel, to not be in touch with what's bothering me. I think sometimes when the threat is new and you're still trying to process it, or it's really, really big, like the threat of the pandemic, sometimes you kind of have to be in that numb space before you can really access it. So for me, when I'm feeling numb, and of course I certainly don't want to be creative when I'm feeling numb, I allow myself to spend some time in that space, and then usually I have to have some kind of release before I can move into comforting and resting my and in an active way. That release usually looks like a good cry, but it can also be journaling, talking to a friend, um, anything that kind of helps you acknowledge how you feel, even if you're not quite sure what it is. Because I think that's the tricky thing about numbing, is sometimes it kind of masks how you actually feel about something. In terms of returning to your creative work, I think when I'm in a state of numbness, there really isn't a way to return. Sometimes I can do busy work, formatting, proofreading, things that don't really take my emotional energy or my vulnerability. But to really write and generate new material, I can't be in a numb state. So I really have to kind of take that time to work through whatever it is that's blocking me up. And then, when I'm comforting myself, sometimes I can, return, and maybe it's something where, I bring chocolate into the studio with me, or, I bring a blanket in and kind of wrap myself up in front of my piano, and really kind of continue to tell my body that I'm in a safe place and it's okay to feel a little shell-shocked. And you kind of just move slowly. I think that's the big thing, is that when you're resting, you can still work, and you can still be creative, but it will just go slower. And the pandemic has really shown me this again and again, that, I am writing, I am moving forward, but it's slower, and and I need a lot more breaks, and my attention it's harder to focus. I've heard a lot of people say this as well. If any of you would like to share your coping mechanisms or have any questions, I would love to hear from you, and thanks for listening.